So how much are my closing costs? So closing costs vary by property to property, and so there's no easy way to tell you exactly how much your closing costs would be until you find a property. So what happens is closing costs are made up of a few different components, some of which that will go to the lender, the bank, and then majority of which will go to third-party companies. So when you look at closing costs, commonly you'll see a charge that is usually called an origination fee. And that's going to be the fee that is paid directly to the lender or the bank, and that's for them to administer and process the loan. So that's typically a very small piece to the pie. And after that point, there are many other charges. So some of the other ones that you will see are going to be an appraisal fee. So anytime you buy a house, you're going to have an appraisal done by a third-party company. They obviously charge a fee. Some of the other big ones will be title insurances. So not my area of expertise. Your attorney or title insurance company will explain that. But basically, they will, or you have to have a lender's title insurance policy, and that's an insurance policy that protects the title of the home. And so that one is for the lender, and the buyer, you actually have to pay that. So you pay that policy for the lender. There is also a owner's policy or a buyer's title insurance policy, and you also pay that. So that one, it's important to know, you are not required to have that. You are definitely required to have the lender policy. You're not required to have the owner policy. With that said, I would talk to the attorney or your title company, and I would say 99.9% of people do purchase the owner policy, and when I'm buying homes, I do it. But again, just so you know, it's not actually required. But then the other, I would say, big chunk to the closing costs are going to be your prepaid escrow items. So when you buy a home, you have to fund an escrow account when you close. And so the vast majority of that is going to be your property taxes. So sometimes you will have to pay, and it depends on when you close, but you could have to pay up to 5 months of property taxes. So if you think about it, looking at the properties that you're looking at, 5 months worth of, call it $600-700, whatever it may be, that can add up pretty quickly. So that's another big piece to closing costs. And then the last big one, I would say, would also be like the interest that you will pay until you close, and then also your homeowner's insurance policy. So you'll also have to get a homeowner's insurance policy, and that's all grouped in to the closing costs. So it's a long way of saying that is why there's not a simple answer to what the closing costs are, because there's so many moving parts, there's so many third parties that are involved, and the majority of the fees are tied to property. So the specific property and the amount and all of those things. So what we try to do is overestimate. So when you're looking at houses and just in the pre-approval stage, we always try to overestimate the closing costs so that you get a good surprise and not a bad one once you actually do find a home. But again, it's just helpful to know that these are definitely not fixed. They're going to vary property to property, and that's how it works. So what we'll do is we try to prepare for the worst, but again, just know that they will not be fixed, and it's not one set of closing costs.